shall be moderating this session. Just before we start with the first presentation, this is a kind reminder to everyone that we will not exceed 5 minutes. At the fourth minute, Dr. Pinky will give a reminder that you're about to finish. As it's a poster presentation, I request all of you to please focus on your objectives, your methodology, and the conclusion. If we do not have enough time, as we have been doing it, we shall be taking the questions and request you to exchange your thoughts on the chat box. With this, I shall be sharing the slides, and the first presentation is by Sonu Hansda. One second. Okay, so you can all see my slides. Are the slides visible?
Yes, Rajni.
Okay, so the first presentation is by Sonu Hansda on beach rating and coastal values, tourists' perspective and socio-economic development, a case study from East Coast of India. Is Sonu there?
Yesterday also few presenters were late. So if they are not here, we can just go to the next one, and then we can take these posters at the end of the session.
Is Dr. Shirsagar here? Is Shivaji Shirsagar here?
Shivaji Shirsagar is present, madam.
Okay, so can we go to your first presentation, sir, which is called Mesolithic Culture and Ostrich Eggshells, a case study of Gaudgaon village, Tehsil Akkalkot, district Solapur, Maharashtra.
Okay, thank you, madam. Can you hear?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Okay, I'm come to...
We'll remind you after 4 minutes. We'll remind you after 4 minutes.
Okay, I'm come to my aims and objective to directly to reconstruction the cultural stratigraphy of the basin, to understand the prehistoric culture chronology of the basin, to study the funnel species of the Quaternary era in the basin, to study the mainland relations of the Bori basin, to compare the C14 and AMS dates with the upper and lower reaches of the Bhima River basin, and to compare the middle Bhima basin and its tributary with the upper and lower reaches. Methodology: geoarchaeological survey with the help of the Survey of India, topo sheet number 56/2, scale 1 is to 50,000 inch and 1 inch to 1 mile, and GSI the district resource map, geological quadrangle maps, Buon 2D, 3D, Google Earth Pro, Planet, Marsac, etc. are used for the methodology. Chlorine phosphate ratio analysis of the fossil analysis and the identification. Paleolithic culture stone tools analysis, typology, technology, raw material study, and the identification of stone tools, photography, drawing, and 3D measurements, length, width, thickness, etc. are used. AMS dates of and C14 dates methodology are used for the shells and Ostrich excels. Findings of my field investigation exploration is findings result are the Ostrich excel for the upper Paleolithic and Mesolithic culture material of the microlithic animal tooths and the bone fossils. Gastropod shells and Paleolithic stone tools are recorded. Lab investigation, stone tools types, technology used, length, width, thickness, average raw material types, weight, etc. carried out of the fossils. For fossil identification, fossil fluorine phosphate are carried out for the absolute dating and the relative date of the Stone Age sites. AMS dates and C14 dates are carried out for the other laboratory. Result and summary: cells of gastropod cells uh, C14 number is BS3845. C14 dating age of 5180 BC years. Late Holocene period Ostrich excels Amos date more than 41,000 year, and the chlorine phosphate ratio of the tooth and bone fossils of the late to early Pleistocene and the late Holocene. We need to more variety of the flora and faunal and other types of material for the date till no dates of the lower reaches of the Bhima Basin. Conclusion: funnel remains material of the middle reaches of Bhima Basin, uh, like animal tooths and bones of the fossil shells, ostriches, eggshells. Dates are the older than the upper and lower reaches of the Bhima Basin. Acknowledgement: all authorities of the Deccan College Postgraduate and Research Institute, Pune, Savitribai Pune University, Pune, Indian Council of Historical Research, New Delhi, Indian Council of Social Science Research, New Delhi, like CM Neutial, Birbal Sahni Institute of Paleobotany, Dr. G.L. Badam for identification of the fossil, Dr. Sila Mishra for encouragement, and the Professor K. Badaya for the encouragement. Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Bisht, do we have any time for a question?
Yeah, we have 1 minute more. Yeah.
We can probably take one question or so. Any questions to Dr. Kshirsagar? Okay. If there are none, I think we can move to the next presentation, which is also by him. Geoarchaeological investigation in Lower Bori Basin, a case study of Hallarli, Akkalkot Tehsil, Solapur district, Maharashtra. Sir, would you be presenting it?
Okay, thank you. Can you please see my presentation, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm come to my aims and objective directly because of time to reconstruct the cultural and cultural stratigraphy of the basin, to understand the prehistoric culture chronology of the basin, to study the various faunal species of the Quaternary era in the Bori Basin, to study the mainland relation of the Bori Basin. Methodology: geoarchaeological survey with the help of the Survey of India topo-sheet and Geological Survey of India district resource and geological quadrangle maps, both 2D, 3D, Google Earth Pro, Marsac, Planet, ETCR, the chlorine phosphate ratio analysis and fossil analysis of the identification Paleolithic culture stone tools analysis, typology, technology, raw material, photography, drawings, and the 3D measurements are done. Previously, Kshirsagar carried out the geoarchaeological investigation of the Bhima River in the middle reaches of Solapur district, and geoarchaeological investigation carried out in Bori River Basin in 2016-2019. The date of the animal fossils such as the cells were carried out by using the chlorine phosphate ratio and C14 scientific method. Field investigation: lower Paleolithic cultural material of the stone tools types like the scrapers, flakes, cleavers made on the basaltic rock are discovered from the Dugwell's gravel stratigraphy of the Dugwell is the 5 to 6 meter construction of the ring due to the loose sediments and the 6 to 15 meter thick deposit of the compact silt sandy mixed with the calcium carbonate bands. It's observed that the 15 to 17 meter the thick deposit of the river conglomerate, pebbly, bouldery, and the gravel is rest on the basaltic bedrock. Paleolithic tools are recovered from this gravel, which spread around the Dugwell lab investigation. The stone tools, typology, technology, and the length, width, thickness, average raw material, weight are carried out. Fossil identification: the fossil fluorine phosphate into the carried out absolute dating and relative date of the Stone Age sites. These details of the fossils are shown in the table 1 and 2. The fluorine phosphate ratio value 7.84 7.03 and 7.3 late to middle and earlier, and value is analysis is 15.0 is Pleistocene and late period. The conclusion dating of the animal trend teeth fossils are the carried out from the fluorine and phosphate mentioned that the method is reused for the animal teeth fossils. Relative date of the archaeological material of the stone tools, late middle Pleistocene and Pleistocene age, date of the Quaternary period. The Alali sample number 101 is fluorine ratio is 15 is more than the out of exceed ratio of the range of the fluorine phosphate dating. Thank you.
Okay. If we have any questions, if there are no questions, I have a question. If you can answer it quickly. Sir, you presented two works. Can you give us the archaeological significance of both your works?
Yeah, the both work is compare with one date of the C14 and one date of the AMS date with the archaeological material, and second one is the fossils which is recovered from the dug wells with the stone tools, and that date are we compare with the archaeological material. That is the significance of the archaeological material and that floral and funnel material.
I think Dr. Binita Patyal has a question.
Yeah. I don't have a question. I just have a suggestion to Shiv Chagas that, it would be really nice if you could have shown us pictures of the tools and the fossils that you had found, because this text in the poster, it's not even legible. And if you could have presented your fluorine and your phosphate data in graphs and all, it would be really nice for all the viewers. I feel that's a suggestion. Maybe in the coming years you can build on that. And it's always exciting to see pictures and the data and the figures and the graphs. So that's just a suggestion. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, madam. I will read next time.
Okay. I think with this we can move on to the next presenter. That is Miss Shaima. The next poster is entitled Late Quaternary Coastal Changes Inferred from Invertebrate Fossil Assemblages of Central Kerala, South India. Shaima et al. Is the author. Can I request Shaima to make a presentation, please?
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes.
Okay. I am Shaima Emmam. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Shaima Emmam, research scholar at Department of Geology and Environment Science, Christ College, under the supervision of Dr. Lindo Alapad. And I'll be presenting late Quaternary coastal changes inferred from invertebrate fossil assemblages of central Kerala. Throughout Quaternary, and the world has witnessed sea level fluctuations that are caused by glacial and interglacial cycles. And these fluctuations occurred in varying magnitudes at different areas around the world. And the coastal stretch of Kerala, which is nearly 560 kilometers long, that has oscillated many times during late Quaternary, and mainly due to marine transgression and regression, particularly since the last glacial maximum. And in this study, we aim to understand the change in paleo environments using the assemblages of fossils in the sediments and radiocarbon dating to constrain the age of deposition from the central coastal plains of Kerala. And the buried invertebrate shells, with their diverse habitats and timelines, are an important source of knowledge on landform dynamics and environmental change in the past. And shells of mollusks that are mostly bivalves and gastropods were used for the study. This is because the mollusk species from the Quaternary period that were always alive and are largely present with no changes in their ecological requirements. And the species identification is based on shell shape and ornamentations. For that, we have used the samples from open wells, under constructions, and vertical trenches that are made using mechanical excavators from 5 locations. The locations are marked as L1, L2, L3, L4, and L5. And the depth of the well sections reached up to 10.5 meter, and for trenches up to 2.5 meter below the surface. And the collected samples are the cell samples are collected cleaned and labeled and were identified up to the species level by their morphological characteristics. And the radiocarbon dating of the shells were done at Physical Research Laboratory, Ahmedabad. Both the conventional methods and IMS methods were used for dating. The stratigraphy, depth, and age of the dated samples are shown in the figure. And from the location L1, the shells embedded in a black clay unit at a depth of 4 to 9 meter, and the dated ages are greater than 40,000 years before present. Cornus ecatinus, Moritrix aurora, Gyrenium lacunatum, Agronia gibbosa, etc. were the species identified from this location. At location L4, most of the shells were partially fossilized, or they are mostly fragmented, and the age was greater than 40,000 years before present. Magellana bilineata, Placuna placenta, Notococlis galtarina were the identified species. And the shells from L1 and L4 are presently found exclusively in marine habitat, and thus their presence in a sedimentary sequence can be regarded as a biomarker for marine depositional condition. Presently, both the locations are nearly 6 kilometers inland of the coast, so the deposition might have occurred during a higher sea level condition. Shells obtained from location L2 were embedded in a black clay unit at 2 meter depth. Dated ages of shells range between 6,376 and 5,884 years before present. Placuna placenta, Parotectanactica, Paratape cendulate, Nasarius leptospira are the identified species. And the living forms of most species obtained are marine in origin, and this clearly indicates to a marine control over the area. And this, however, this area is presently under freshwater wetland condition and nearly 6 kilometers inland. So the flooding of low-lying areas occurs during the rapidly rising sea level in the mid-Holocene sea level high stand, and this results in the shifting of the shoreline and drowning of inland regions through the tidal inlets or the creeks. And huge assemblages of Villorita
1
cyprinoids
minute left.
Huge assemblages of Villorita cyprinoids were obtained from location L3 at a depth of 2 meter in a black clay unit, and date of the shell range from 2127 to 1265 years before present. And this particular species have a brackish habitat, and their assemblages are usually found in estuaries. And the area is presently under a freshwater condition. There might be an estuarine or a tidal inlet during the time of deposition of the sediments. And the location L5, the shells were preserved in a black clay unit at a depth of 3.5 to 9.5 meter, and Tegelarca bicos, Agronia gibbosa, Magellana bilineata, Sacostria cuculata are the identified species, and all these have a marine habitat. And from the above results, we conclude that three distinct groups of radiocarbon ages corresponding to the late Pleistocene, mid-Holocene, and late Holocene was obtained from the study. And the fossil evidence show that marine to marginal marine condition prevailed in the study area till late Holocene, and that was later occupied by a freshwater condition when the sea receded. Alternate dating methods are required to delineate
I'm
the
sorry,
exact timing of deposition during Pleistocene,
Miss
as
Sharma.
many dates obtained were beyond the limit of C14 dating. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Before I move on, I'll congratulate you on having a nice, clear poster. Yeah, it
Okay,
was really very and also well presented. You just ran a little out of time.
okay,
Okay.
thank you, ma'am.
The next presentation is by Anubhav Preet Kaur, and the poster is entitled First Known Fossil Rattite Eggshells from the Sivalik Frontal Range near Chandigarh, Northern India, and their multidisciplinary scientific analysis. Can I request Anubhav to please start his presentation?
Yeah, hi. So, in this poster, we have basically summarized the evidence of ostrich eggshells from the surface of Pinjore Formation from the Shivalik Hills north of Chandigarh, and results from XRD, SCM, and stable isotope analysis. These eggshells were basically found from the surface of Pinjore sediments exposed north of Chandigarh at a locality of Choti Badi Nangal. So, from Choti Badi Nangal, across three different scatters, a total of 36 fossilized eggshells were discovered, and their average thickness is more than 2.2 millimeter. If we compare this average thickness with that of the African ostrich eggshells, it is way more than what is known for the African eggshells, but it is less than the average thickness of the well-known epiornithoid type Rattite eggshells, and based on the pore pattern morphology, we have come to a conclusion that these Rattite eggshells are more akin to ostriches, and that also the Somali blue ostrich, which is Struthiocamelus molybdophanes. Based on XRD analysis, one thing that we got to know was that these eggshells have been very less mineralized. That is, very little alteration has happened to secondary elements in the core structure of these eggshells. Moreover, the SCM data of the transaction indicates a clear, ostrich eggshell morphology. Then these samples were also analyzed for carbon 13 and oxygen 18 isotopic results. So the carbon 13 were returned with a value of minus 8.6 per mil, whereas the oxygen 18 was returned with a value of positive 16.0 per mil, which is very high for the known ranges of shivalik eggshells, or basically ostrich eggshells from all over the India. A similar high oxygen 18 value was also observed in a single specimen from Katauti, which dates to the late Pleistocene. However, if we just focus on the carbon 13 values, it can be inferred that it was a predominantly C4 tropical and subtropical uh, C4 dominated environment. Based on the oxygen 18 valued, one thing that's for sure is that these eggs were produced in an arid and possibly a very warm and low humid environment. However, we need to still analyze more samples in order to precisely conclude anything about the paleo environment and the paleo ecology of the region and the sediments that these eggshells were found to be associated with. Overall, what we know is that these eggshells are definitely fall into the bracket of 2.58 to 0.63 million years, but we also need to do direct dating of these using ESR or AMS in order to better understand where exactly they fit in within the Pinjore range. And also, in the near future, these will be sampled for protein analysis for accurate taxonomic interpretation. Even though, on the basis of pore pattern morphology, we can conclude that they belong to Struthiocamelus molybdophanes, but then again, the entire question about taxonomic identity of Indian retites is a big question that needs to be resolved with protein analysis and future research. So that's all. Thanks.
I think with that, I must really, we have a minute for maybe some question.
Yeah, we have 1 minute more. We can have questions.
We have one more minute. Anubhav Preet, it was a beautiful, I think I love your slides and the clarity in them. And even just go and see if there's no one to explain. I think it's a very well made slide.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Okay. No more questions, so maybe we can move to the next presentation. Dr. Bisht, please.
Yeah, so we have our next presentation by Chirag Jani on the topic characterization of tectonically active zones in the island belt uplift region, Kutch Basin, Western India using GIS and geodetic techniques. Over to you, Chirag.
Thank you, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes, you
Yeah.
are.
Yes. My name is Chirag, and I am a PhD student from KSKV Kutch University. And the present work is constrained in the island belt region in the Kutch Basin. So Kutch Basin is located on the western part of Gujarat state. So in the Kutch Basin, if you can see figure number 1, the Kutch Basin is my island belt region is situated on the northern part of the Kutch Basin. So these these are known as uplifts. So these uplifts are actually discrete islands. That's why the name is given the island belt uplift. So these uplifts are on the northern part of the Kutch Basin, and the uplifts are actually the upthrown block along the island belt fault. So the island belt fault has actually uplifted this whole region. Moreover, the whole of the island belt uplift are also dissected by several transverse faults. That's why these islands have been formed discretely. So the origin of the island belt uplift I have explained. Further, what we did is we tried to infer that or how much amount of neotectonically activity is going on in this region. So, and decipher some of the tectonic active zones in this region. So what we performed is we performed the morphotectonic analysis using normalized stiffness index. So I calculated the normalized stiffness index from the discrete islands. So more than 115 streams were analyzed in this study. And if you can see that in the figure number 3, the contour map of KSN is implicated of the Pacham and Khadir Island. So using the swath analysis, which is the rectangular box analysis, we try to infer the zones which are actually showing abrupt decrease or increase of the KSN values. So these abrupt increase or decrease of the KSN will depict some type of tectonic activity in the region. Moreover, I also inferred some of the lineament map and faults, and these faults or lineament exactly matched in the KSN abrupt zones. So from these analyses, we tried to find out that okay, so these lineaments or faults are neotectonically active, but these were pre-field analysis. So we went to the field to prove that these faults or lineaments which we are saying neutron active are actually showing some of the features. So if you see in the figure number, I think 7, so they are showing some peculiar type of neotectonic features like fault scarp, strat terraces, linear valleys, neck points. So these features, neutron active features, were actually situated along these lineaments. So we confirm that these lineaments are actually neotectonically active. Further, we also try to decipher that among the uplifts, which uplift was showing much more activity. So from the KSN value, we found out that the Pacham Island is showing much more neotectonic activity in the whole of the island belt region, and followed by Bela, Khadir, and then Chorar Island. So this was the ordering of the tectonic activity. We also tried to correlate our studies with the GPS time range series. So GPS also states that the Pacham uplift shows the deformation rate is much more than the Pacham uplift shows 2.5 millimeter per year of the deformation rate, while Khadir shows 1.2 millimeter per year and Bela shows 2 millimeter per year. So our studies very well correlate with the GPS time range series. Moreover, we also try to correlate it with the DINSAR as well as the gradient length anomaly GLA analysis. All the studies match with our proof that yes, the Pacham uplift is much more tectonically active than the Khadir uplift and Bela uplift. So these are the works which I have done. Moreover, one very peculiar type of result we found that the northern part of the Islandbuilt uplift are showing
1 minute left.
Yes, the northern part of the uplift is showing much more active than the southern part. So the Islandbuilt fault could be the main reason to activate this region neotectonically. So the Islandbuilt uplift, the northern part of the Islandbuilt uplift are the most active region in this area. So these are the results which I have proved.
Okay. I think we can move to next presentation.
Thank you, ma'am.
So moving to our next poster presentations, we have Gaurav Chandrakant, who will be presenting on the topic morphostratigraphic and lithostratigraphic studies of Quaternary sediments in Lendi River, tributary of Manjra River, India. Gaurav. Is Gaurav there?
Okay. Seems like we can move to the next presentation.
Yeah, so the next presentation will be from Nishant on the topic gradual climate changes in an undated quaternary fluvial sections at Mahadev, Piparia, Madhya Pradesh.
No, I think the next presentation is by Parv Kasana.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. It's by Parv Kasana on the topic lithologic and tectonic controls on flexural bulge of Indian plate.
Am I audible?
Yeah.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Parv Kasana, and in this work we have tried to analyze the lithologic and tectonic controls on the flexural bulge of the Indian plate. So starting with the basics, the docking of Indian Eurasian plate and subduction of the Indian plate has resulted in the formation of a large-scale flexure in the Indian ward side of the Indian plate, and that uplifted region is known as the Flexural bulge. And various authors has highlighted this uh, region as the Vindhyan Plateau as the representation of this particular flexure. So basically, there are 6 major cratonic river systems which flow over this uh, on this region, which are the Chambal, Sindh, Betwa, Ken, Tamsa, and so on. And as we know that rivers are the very sensitive entities if we talk about the lithologic and tectonic forcing or the climatic forcing in a particular region. But there are some reasons that some lithological variations can affect the fluvial erodibility and can result in the in the formation of false signals of active tectonics in the river profiles. So in this work, we have tried to look at the dynamics of the flexural bulge and its impact on the lineament joint development and its orientation. Secondly, we have tried to look at the lithology present over this region and how the fluvial erodibility varies in this region. To do that, we have basically calculated 2 major proxies. One is the normalized steepness index, which can be used as a proxy for to measure the fluvial erodibility of channel. And secondly, we have calculated the or measured the intact rock strength of major rock types present in this region using a N-type Schmidt hammer. Thirdly, the lastly, we have used the lineament data provided by the Geological Survey of India and done lineament orientation analysis. So coming up to the results, we found that the shales are the very soft and soft lithologies, and as shown in the bar plot, we can see that the shale, the dark blue colored bar, which is the almost half than the basically this graph is showing the R value of these particular rock types, and we can see that shales are very soft and the rebound values of these shales are comparatively lower than the other 4 types of the lithologies. Secondly, when we try to look at the steepness index along these lithologies, we find that the shales are again comparatively uh, showing a lesser steepness index values as compared to the other lithologies, which are the sandstones, granite, sandstone orthoquartzites, and the dolomitic limestone. Thirdly, if we look at the lineament orientation in this region, we find that most of these lineaments are aligned along northwest southeast direction, which is approximately parallel to a Himalayan mountain belt. And we also found that the major nick points are also aligned along these lineaments. So coming up to the discussion, if we talk about the variation in the lithology, the if as we know that the Vindhyan Plateau is formed by the it's basically formed by the intercalation of different rock types, sedimentary rock types, which are shale sandstones and uh, dolomitic limestone. So if a hard resistant lithology is present over a softer rock type or a softer lithology such as shale, it results in the formation of it basically results in the erosion of softer lithologies quickly than the harder lithologies, and that results in the formation of escarpments and in the formation of vertical nick points. Secondly, if we talk about the generation of the lineaments, if we imagine this four-bulge as a large-scale folded anticline, we can suggest that most of these lineaments are perpendicular to the maximum stress direction, that is the north-south in the case of Indian plate. So such kind of joints and lineaments can be formed
Last 1
because
minute.
of the
Last 1 minute.
lineaments can be formed because of the tensional forces which can be present. So we calculated the fiber stresses in this region and we found that it exceeds 100 megapascal. So these fiber stresses are higher than the tensile strength of most of the rocks present in this region. So we conclude that the four-bulge tectonics is basically guiding the exhumation of the rock types, and the lithological contrast is overall is the major factor which guides the landscape formation and formation of different kind of geomorphic units in this region. Thank you.
With
Yeah,
that,
thank you, Parv Kasana, for this presentation. Now we are moving towards our next presentation, which will be given by Nishant on the topic Gradual Climate Changes in an Undated Quaternary Fluvial Sections at Mahadev, Piparia, Madhya Pradesh. Nishant.
is Nishant there?
Yes, yes. Am I audible?
Okay. No, your voice is very, very low and distant. No. Can you please increase your volume? Can you please increase your volume? We can't hear you.
Okay, now can you hear me?
Louder?
Now?
Better?
Yes. So can I start now?
Is he audible to everyone? For me, he's very low.
No, he's not. He's not audible actually. Yeah.
Nishant, your volume should be more higher. It's very low. Please get the mic close to yourself.
Yes. Now?
Okay, let's start.
Let's start.
So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Nishant, and I'm a BSMS fifth year student at ISO Mohali. So this work is related to climate-human interaction and or to understand climatic dynamics and cultural evolution. So there are numerous studies which show climate has a great impact on human habitation and adaptation. So this is a paleoclimatic part of this work, and in this study we've used sedimentological and geochemical analysis on the fluvial deposit. So the objective of our work first is to reconstruct paleoclimatic conditions and then to determine human settlements through archaeological evidences, and then to see how what was the societal response of human habitants to climatic changes. So our study area belongs to Narsinghpur district in Madhya Pradesh, and the samples were collected from the bank of Narmada, and it's a 16-meter deep trench. So from qualitatively from archaeological evidences, it was established that top 5 meter starts from late Pleistocene, and for the quantitative data, we are expecting dates from OSL. So, and we have also tried checking for organic content, but it was very low, so we didn't go into that. So for in the result for the results in this section, the first figure you can see is a data plotted from grain size analysis, and we've also compared it with the litholog. So in the litholog, this yellowish part is the sand particles, and the top brownish part is cell particles. So now this here you can see a decreasing trend in the mean diameter of grains, and we have also plotted sand, silt, and clay percentages, which are also showing the same trend. So the next in the next figure, this is the data plotted from geochemical analysis using XRF. So we have plotted here mobile and immobile elements, percentages of mobile and immobile elements. So for immobile element like aluminium, there is a increase in percentage, and for mobile element like calcium oxide, its percentage is showing a decreasing trend. We have also plotted a silicon aluminum percentage and calcium aluminum percentage. So this is still ongoing work, and till now we have only summarized that there's a reduction in the river energy and from grain size because it's decreasing as we are going up in the trench, and from XRF, like we have seen, there is a decrease in chemical weathering. So we can also say that there is a decrease in the intensity of precipitation. So, and from the Acheulean artifacts that were found along the bank of the river and few rock paintings in that district, we are sure that human habitations were there in that region, but like we have no evidence about what was the nature of their activity or what, like how they interacted with the environment. So for that we are doing pollen analysis, and so from pollen analysis we will know about the vegetation at that time and what was the environmental conditions at that time. So thank you.
Okay. With that, we can move on to the next because we've already exhausted time. We can move on to the next presentation.
Yeah, our next presentation will be by Poonam Chahal on the topic Transient Fluvial Incision in the Upper Jhanskar, Implication for Late Quaternary Activity on the STDS, Western Himalaya. Poonam.
Good afternoon, everyone. Am I audible to you?
Yeah, Punam, carry.
So, I'm presenting our work on transient fluvial incision in the Upper Janskar, implication for late Quaternary activity on the STDS in Western Himalaya. The extensional feature of Himalaya, South Tibetan Detachment System, has accommodated the crystal thickening and elevated topography arising due to subducting Indian lithosphere. Most of the data suggests that STDS was active by Miocene time, but there are evidence which shows episodic quaternary displacement along few segments of the South Tibetan Detachment System. In the Ladakh Himalaya, nearly 150-kilometer long stretch of STDS is known as Janskar Shear Zone. Two main tributaries of Janskar River, which are Doda River and Shruplingtichu, flow along the strike of this Janskar shear zone in the headwaters of Janskar Valley. Doda River flow in a very wide U-shaped valley, but the Shruplingtichu flow in a V-shaped narrow valley with very steep gradient. And in this valley, we have found two strat terraces uh, and along with valley fill deposits. The fill sequences of the valley are in agreement with the aggradational phase of trunk channel, which is Janskar River Valley, at the time period of 40 and 15 Ka, which corresponds with the wet and warm period of deglaciation and strengthened Indian summer monsoon. As far the strat terraces are concerned, the first strat terraces at the Anmu village, which is the highest strat terrace in the valley, uh, is present nearly 153 meter above modern river channel at the Anmu village. And it also have fluvial and lacustrine sediment cover preserved on the top of strat bench. The OSL age of the fluvial deposit is 57 Ka. Another strat terrace is identified nearly 5 kilometers downstream of the previous strat at an height of 57 meter above modern river channel with fluvial cover on the top, which for which we have used OSL dating and give an age of 34 Ka. On the basis of these strat terraces, long-term incision rate is calculated along the Janskar shear zone in the Shruplingtichu Valley, which varies from nearly 1 to 3 millimeter per annum. And thus, the study indicates that the studies support the hypothesis of episodic neotectonic activity along the segments of South Tibetan Detachment System. Thank you.
Okay. We have time.
If anyone wants to have some question, I
We have
can
a couple
take.
of minutes for some questions. Any questions, please? Okay. Ma'am, I must compliment you on a very clean and well illustrated poster.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, and also very well presented. Can we
Thank you
move
so
on?
much.
We move on to the next presentation by Samiksha Kaushik. Her group is presenting a poster entitled Glacier Fluvial Response of the Late Pleistocene Holocene Climate Changes, a preliminary study from Dhauliganga Valley, northwestern Himalayas.
Hello. Uh, Hello, good afternoon everyone. Here I am presenting the preliminary study from Dholiganga Valley, Northwest Himalaya, in which we are trying to understand the glaciofluvial landform response to the late Quaternary, late Pleistocene, Holocene climate changes. So here why we choose the Dholiganga Valley? Because the river traverses the glacial and periglacial zone and it has preserved the imprints of climate variability in the form of various landforms. In addition to this, the valley has preserved spectacular sequences of paleoflood, alluvial fans, and debris flow. And these deposits are exposed at the confluence of east and west flowing Sark Glacier stream, which meets Dholiganga at multiple locations such as Suraithota, Jumma, and Bhabkund. And we have also observed some of the high energy and ponded sequences between Surai Thota and ruined villages, as shows in figure 2, 3, 4, and 5, which implying that the river was impounded in the past by extreme events. So the main objective of our study was to understand the response of earth surface processes to the late Quaternary climate event in the valley. Uh, Figure 1 shows the location of our study area in the Dholiganga watershed. The river cut across the STD near Malari and MCT near Helang after meets with the Alaknanda river at Vishnuprayag. Figure 2 shows the topography and active glaciofluvial mechanism in the area as the tributary named as Tolma Gadera that flows perpendicular to the main Dholiganga river has an extremely high gradient. Thus, the extreme event like cloudburst, glacial lake outburst flood, or accelerated melting of the snow increase the discharge in this area and which leading to the mobilization of sediment by the combination of water and gravity, and these sediments are deposited at the exit of tributary as shows in figure 3 Suraithota section formed due to impounding of Dholiganga river that shows the four alternating event from bottom to top. Further, the figure 4 shows the profile of different layers which are exposed near Juma village that are deposited by the river and the debris deposited material. Uh, in figure 4, meteoric supported rounded to sub-rounded pebbles is deposited, which is followed by the 80 centimeter lake sediment deposit. To know about the lake formation and its pattern, we have collected OSL samples to date the material, and 16 samples were also collected for further analysis to understand the depositional pattern. In figure 5, which shows the sediment succession which is exposed at the confluence of Dunagiri and Dholiganga river, which is represented by following phases from bottom to top: parallel laminated gravel with coarse to gritty sand, which is followed by tillites, then debris flow deposit, and then sandy silt deposit, a lake deposit, outwash gravels, lithology
Last one.
dominated by
Last one.
leucogranite. Okay, okay, ma'am. So finally, the result and conclusion of our study is we have obtained two AMS radiocarbon dates after calibration. After calibration, the ages are 1597 and 1309 respectively. Our dates were exactly matches with the observation were made in the Tones Valley by Scherler et al. 2010 and Gangotri Valley by Bernard et al. 2004, which suggesting a reasonably warm and moist climate after 1572 year before present. And our study also suggested that the late Quaternary landform deposit of Dholiganga Valley were developed by glaciofluvial system in response to intensified summer monsoon. And our this preliminary finding of our study has implication for understanding the flash flood and debris flow mechanism in response to climate change. Okay, thank you.
Okay. We've exhausted time, so with no further delay, we move on to the next presentation by Shubhendu Pradhan. The next presentation is called Spatial Analysis of Cirques in Northwest Himalaya, Application in Paleo-Environmental Reconstruction. Is Shubhendu there?
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon to all. So I'm Subhendu Pradhan, Research Scholar in Department of Geography, Banaras Hindu University. So I'm presenting special analysis of cirques in Northwest Himalaya and its application in paleo-environmental reconstruction. So for this study, I'm using cirque, a bowl-shaped glacial landform as a proxy to understand its paleoclimatic condition and its pattern of evolution. My study area is Northwest Himalaya, which comprises of three ranges: Jhanskar in the south, Ladakh in the central, and Karakoram in the northern ranges. And it have two major sources of precipitation, that is Indian summer monsoon and mid-latitude westerlies. Since study of cirques in Northwest Himalaya is very limited, so in this work we prepared the first detailed cirque map, which have modern and paleo cirques, and 1,126 potential cirques are identified using different satellite imagery and maps. Now the cirque dimension is controlled by climatic factors like precipitation, temperature, wind speed, wind direction, and non-climatic factors such as altitude, lithologies. So cirque dimension parameters like length, width, and heights, its maximum and minimum elevation are extracted and interpreted along with the precipitation gradient. To summarize my major findings, so I'll say point by point. First, we found that the ELA decreases to the north along the precipitation gradient of Indian summer monsoon, and it follows the global ELA versus latitude pattern, where we can see equator have higher ELA and pole have lower ELA. Also, cirque in the western sectors are found to be deeper and more incised and at less deep, which proves that the dominance of mid-latitude westerlies in northwest Himalaya. It is observed, third point, it's observed at lower altitude, north-facing cirques are found. But as we move to the higher altitude, south-facing cirques also are found, because at a higher altitude, there is continuous cloud shadowing and increased lapse rate, which makes southern face also suitable for glacial occupancy. Coming to the fourth finding, the lithological controls of the cirques is absent in northwest Himalaya. And next, the difference of cirque depth for north-facing and south-facing cirques is not much different, which can be inferred that the cirques are formed in cloudy condition. The climate was cloudy. Now, when next finding is when cirque is plotted over wind map, it is found that cirques are formed in high wind velocity, high wind speed areas. So it can be inferred that the snow accumulation for cirque formation is mostly wind drifted. Now, coming for the three ranges, Jhanskar, Ladakh, and Karakoram, the cirque aspect in Jhanskar and Ladakh is found to north and northeast, and Karakoram also north and northern direction, which is aligned to the paleo wind direction of last glacial maximum. Next, it is found that the younger cirques are found to be more abundant than the older cirques, because as the cirque gets old, the eroded sediments get trapped subglacially, protecting the bedrock for further erosion. Next finding is during the evolution process, cirque lengthen more than widen, because as glacier moves, the headwall erosion becomes more than the lateral erosion. Also, it is found that the headwall erosion, lateral erosion, and vertical erosion are different rate, which can be inferred that cirque evolution is allometric. Now, next finding is the glacial burst hypothesis. The hypothesis says erosion limits upliftment. That means that means the area with higher elevation will erode at a higher rate. Area with lower elevation will erode at lower rate. This can be proved by showing the strong correlation between peak elevation and equilibrium lie altitude. For northwest Himalaya, we found strong correlation, which can be proved that the
last minute.
Yes, ma'am. So it can be proved that the glacials are shaped by glacial burst hypothesis. At the end, I want to conclude that this work will help in estimating the ELS and understanding the contribution of westerlies and Indian summer monsoon, which is debated in various papers. Thank you.
Okay, with no further delay, we move to the last presentation of this session. That is by Zahid Majid. That is called Glacial Geomorphology of Nubra Valley, Ladakh, India. Is Zahid here? Okay, I guess Zahid is not here. Okay, so I can stop. With that, we come to the end of this session. There were a total of 14 abstracts or 14 posters which were recorded for this session, out of which only 10 have been presented. One thing which was very, very clearly evident was that sadly there was no expression of humans in the Quaternary, and landscape Quaternary landscape evolution, especially works from the Himalayas, have dominated this session. And it would be nicer to see more human climate interaction occurs in this session in the next time. But with that, I hand over to Dr. Binita Fartyal to take over and probably start with the next session with no further delay. I really thank Dr. Pinky Bisht and Dr. Praveen, who is not here, but has helped in every possible way, even from where he is. He is in a different time frame than us, and that's why he was not able to join us. I thank AOQR for giving us this opportunity to moderate this session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Rajni. Thank you, Dr. Pinky, for moderating this session so well and well in time. It's sad that we did not have 4 presentations. We were still waiting for Sonu Hansa and Gaurav. It would have been nice if they would have presented. They worked so hard for their posters and they submitted the posters on time. That is why we could display them here. But today in the Gujarat area, there's a major power breakdown. So many, in the morning sessions also, the oral presenters could not present the work because of this. So maybe, they are from that area. And so once again, thank you so much. And thank you all the presenters of this session. It went very well. We still have 15 minutes to start the second session, the last session. But in the meantime, our moderator for the session, Quaternary Geology, Science, Philosophy, Management and Policy is here, Dr. Mursike. Mursike, you can just start it. I would just call the guests and tell them to join. Okay, before that, can we just have can you all yeah, we wanted to take a good group photo. I know that doesn't make sense like here, but if you could just put our cameras on and we could take a few screenshots for our newsletter and things like that. Yeah, that's nice. So please, all of you also take screenshots and some pictures because it would be nice. Yeah, please, which photos? Just remove that. Yeah. Yeah, great. Please, let's take it. Others also, yeah, that's very nice. Thank you. We're taking few screenshots and few pictures so that Bindu Pradhan, please switch on your camera. Denise is there. Yes, sir. Hello, Vandana.
Hello.
Also. Yeah, thank you. That's very nice. So, okay, please, all of you. We can.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Yeah, what a wonderful meeting. We come to a concluding session. By nature, science is actually not conclusive, always provisional. So in this session, actually, what we are going to do, what and how we do in the years.
There is no sound.
Yeah, so I have to speak again. So, yeah, very nice meeting. for these 3 days. So now we come to the concluding session. By nature of science, actually it is always provisional, not final. So this concluding session also, we would like to think or interact with the experts and also the president of INCOA and the president of INCOA Rome, and also Professor Singvi, on how we take forward these sciences in the years to come. Before I invite these people for interaction, let us have an interaction. Okay, let them talk, and then we can talk. We can interact with them as well. So, but I have something to talk in between. That is something from the strange topic. It's a philosophy for the paleosciences. I'm not going to talk about the full paper. Some excerpts on that. Okay, so the Deadwall Science for Paleosciences, it has been changed to Paleobotany to Paleosciences. So this is a triggering point. Why I'm talking this here is not only because quaternary science is within paleosciences, but also there's a lot of scope for the improvement in these paleosciences, the philosophy of paleosciences. So I have only touched upon few issues, and then there are more scope for improvement. And then also there's the emphasis on the future direction, how we should go. So these are the two things I would like to emphasize. This paper I published in the PINSA, or Proceeding of Indian National Science Academy Journal, in 2019. It is called Philosophy for the Paleosciences, a Review. Out of curiosity, I jumped into this, but realized it is not a pond to dip, but an ocean to trench. I would like to have a few portions from this paper. It's a bulk key paper. We can go through if you want to. So, what is the felt need for this article? Apart from the name change of our institute, there are two questions that that was in my mind, and then I thought you also will have the same questions in your mind if I explain what are these questions. So, the first question is, I'll just give us some background. There was a brainstorming session on the paleontology topic, and then I was there, and then I just raised a question. There are questions in the academy that is paleontology a science? Like, are we doing science? Then somebody got very angry, furious. How can you ask this question? Of course, it is science. So it was like a response was an angry response, but they are not able to answer it properly. So this question was bothering me. So are we doing science? Is paleontology or climate change science? What is science? Actually, people follow philosopher of science criteria like falsifiability. That means we are not doing any experiments here, right? We are not doing any controlled experiments. Experiments have already been done. So we only observe. So as we cannot manipulate, as we cannot control the experiments, so we cannot repeat the experiment. For example, we cannot repeat the dinosaur to come again. So similarly, cosmology also faces the same question, like, is cosmology science? Because we cannot reproduce the universe again, we cannot recreate the earth again. So just because we cannot recreate, manipulate, is it science? So this is one question we need to think about it. And the next question, that's like a political issue, like if you see throughout the globe, starting from India, Brazil, UK, USA, global right-wing risings, there are rise of global right-wings, and then populists are reigning. So now, for them, the glorious history is very important. So they have to establish, we had a great history. So then, of course, the tool they have is paleoscience. So oppressors also have a paleoscience as tool, but then the oppressed also has the same tool to defend and to offend. Okay, not in offensive bad way, but just to protect ourselves. So two questions that bother: is it science? And then also in the global risings of right-wings and the populist training, as a scientist, what are we going to do? How do we face them? Essentially, the second question boils down to the question: how much reliable our historical reconstructions are? How much reliably we can reconstruct our history? Another question or thinking is, there are armchair philosophers they sit in the chair rooms, and then they suggest, they prescribe what a scientist to do. So now there's a dichotomy between armchair philosophers. They write journals on how we should do our science in philosophy journals, and then as a practicing scientist, we don't read them often. Of course, not all. A few people read, but many people, we don't know what they are doing. They talk about how we should do our science. Okay, so now my aim is, let us bring the discussion points to the table so that the practicing scientist and the philosopher can talk about. Okay, so so the main idea of publishing this paper is not to publish in a philosophy journal, but to publish in a science journal. There are a lot of rejections, so so that's why we come up with in our journal we have published that. Okay, another important point, we need a philosophy for our own sciences which were made by us. A physicist should not write a philosophy of paleoscience. So in the strict sense, I don't know whether I am the right person to write that article or not. So some of us can take it further because there are a lot of scope for improvement. So I just start with definition. I'll not spend more time on it. So what is paleosciences? There is no word paleosciences. There is no definition for it. There are historical sciences, but I made a small change in the definition so that the paleoscience becomes defined now. So what is paleosciences? Paleosciences are nothing but historical sciences that focus only on the temporally disconnected past. For example, historical sciences deal with focus on the present as well as past, but paleosciences, it only deal with temporally disconnected past. What is temporally disconnected? Because the present and past are disconnected. As Professor Watson discussed in the first talk, like he was talking about presentism and eternalism, there's a philosophy of time. Here, this I discussed about philosophy of time, that is like a moving time boxes. Okay, so there's no disconnection between present and past, but as a methodological requirement, I have disconnected the past from the present. Present is used as a tool to understand the past, so that's why we need a disconnection. So here also there's a lot of scope for defining what is present and what is past. So some of you can also take up that. So now another question: what is the appropriate metaphysical view to do paleosciences? So there are many things you can go through. Just I want to pinpoint as a historical realism. It is actually coming under the scientific realism. What is that? If you do anything with unobservability, then it is realism. So, for example, a few years ago, Higgs boson or the God particle got Nobel Award. That cannot be observed. That can be only analyzed in some kind of data. Okay, so one cannot observe. So it is an unobservable tiny particle. Similarly, cosmology deal with the light. That was actually not even reaching us. So that was also unobservability. So those are scientific realism or experimental realism. Now we are suffering from an unobservability that is due to the distant past. We have never seen dinosaur, but we study about that. So it is a historical realism. So it has a established metaphysical view and then philosophy for that. So our sciences fit in historical realism. Professor Turner from USA has established that historical realism. Then another tool we have is metaphysical tool. Why I'm talking about all this? We do assuming this here only. I'm just emphasizing what are they. So what is the metaphysical tool we have? You also know uniformitarian principle as mentioned by Hutton. Here actually we have the tool uniformitarian simplicity. So I have here combined uniformitarianism and then simplicity, that is Occam razor. For example, given a situation, complex situation, we prefer simple situation. So that's what simplicity. And then now I combine uniformitarianism and then simplicity. Of course, it is necessary but not sufficient, because sometimes we do extreme events. Extreme events cannot be definition in uniformitarian. So it is actually catastrophism. And then also it is very highly complex material. We are dealing with complex processes. So catastrophism complexity may be employed as well, but at the cost of, when we are exhausted with uniformity and simplicity principle, then we can take up the catastrophism complexity to explain our geological or paleoscientific process we study. So now I just explain how we do paleosciences from a case study. So because case study explain more, so this case study on a bet that failed on the color of the dinosaurs. So what was the bet? As this Professor Turner, he was a famous philosopher of historical sciences. He made a bet. What was the bet? It was impossible to know the dinosaur's color because the color pigments would have already been decayed. So that was his bet. Because by definition, any event will happen, and then the trace evidence, it started decaying. And then we are also dealing with the past. With time, the decay increases. So it will never be improved, it can only be decayed. So because the color pigments would have been already decayed, you have nothing to study, then you will never know the color of the dinosaur. So it was, then he based his argument because Woodke, actually he studied the fossil feather of the dinosaur. In the right hand side, that's a dark band and then light bands. He studied using SEM. The dark bands, it was having the feather destroying bacteria. So he studied feather destroying bacteria, and then so it is already feathered, is already destroyed, and then all the color pigments would have been already gone. So he said, Woodke mentioned color of the dinosaur is difficult to infer. So based on this study, Turner made a bet. It is impossible to know the dinosaur's color. Okay. Now, so we'll discuss in detail what we can learn from this case study. And then in 2008, Winter, there is a Danish man. He studied the fossilized feather of the dinosaurs, and then he studied about using EDS and TEM, okay, transmission electron microscope. And then he studied the dark band. There are melanosomes. They are the tiny pigment containing organelles. Okay. Now these melanosomes were not there in the light band. So now we suppose Woodke, what he inferred, the feather destroying bacteria, then it should have been everywhere, whether irrespective of the dark band and the light bands. But now he studied only melanosomes that are only in the dark bands. Then he related, and then also he studied the modern feathers that was related to the color pigments. Now he can say it is the dark bands have information about the color. Then he inferred by comparing the modern feathers. So in 2008, the color of the dinosaur can be potentially inferred, and then follow-up study infer the color of the dinosaurs. Okay, from the same fossil of using group Messel in Germany. So what we can learn from this failed bet was, earlier study in 1983 they used SEM, and then in the 2008 they used TEM. So there is what is the improvement? Technologically there are improvements in this year. So that made it possible to infer it is whether it is feather destroying bacteria or melanosomes. Another important improvement is in the background theories. So one can relate the melanosomes to the color using the technological improvements. Okay. So now when anything limitation on the paleosciences, for example, the bet was it was impossible to know the color of the dinosaurs, but that limitation is not ontological. What is ontological? In principle, it's not possible. That's what ontological. By nature, it is impossible. Then it is ontological. But the limitation imposed on the paleoscientific inferences is not ontological, but epistemological. What is epistemological? We have some problem in knowing. Not by nature it is forbidden, but we have, if we can have the background theories appropriate and then technological improvements appropriate, then we can know what was forbidden earlier. Okay, so that is main inference one can know. As of now, if somebody says something is impossible, that is actually epistemological with the improvements in technology and then the development of appropriate background theories, one can infer what is true that was of the past. Then further, challenging epistemological limitation is in knowing the final details. For example, color of the dinosaur one can know, but what about the color of the eye, or whether the more details if you want to understand about the detailed past, then still it is challenging. But again, we have the scope that better technological improvement and background theories development is made possible. Yeah. So now here I would like to bring some avenues where epistemic assistance. What are the epistemic assistance? Like if anybody says it is not possible, then what we should do in that situation? One method is omnivorous investigation. By definition, omnivorous is anything is available, we'll just take it. Because we are in unlucky circumstances, we don't have enough evidences. So whatever the evidence that are available in the situation, in the field visit where we go, we collect everything and then we do modeling. Then comes the modeling. So modeling, we are also dealing with a complex science, which is unobservable also. So with the existing physical, chemical, biological process, we recreate, we simulate the situation, and then we study about the outcome and then compare. So it is actually possible, it can be done in unlucky circumstances. When what I say unlucky, if we have proper evidences, then we are in lucky circumstances. Otherwise, we do everything, we collect it, and then do a lot of simulation study, and then try to understand the historical past. Okay, so that is actually in that sense, it is actually make us opportunistic. Whatever is available with us in the field, and then we collect them and study in detail, and then we can understand better. Then another one, epistemological pluralism. What is that? Like we can't do disciplinary science. Various disciplines has to come together. Coming together of various disciplines to address a paleoscientific issue or problem. So not only that, and then also with various persons from different walks of life. So it is actually very interesting because this has implications in citizen science. For example, citizen science as of now, like astronomy, people are using, or biodiversity people use to know where the sample is, to collect the sample. But here I would like to propose where we include different walks of people, because paleoscience rely on the present. The more the understanding about the present, we can interpret the past better. So the modern analog or the present understanding about the physical processes is very important. That we'll never know unless we talk to the people who are in the down to earth. So different interdisciplinary approach, and then also including lay persons in our research helps us to address the present and then the past better. Okay, so overall, my point is, in paleosciences in general and quaternary paleosciences in particular, it has a lot to offer to any creative and curious person, because vastness and free play field is available, because multiple working hypotheses one has to construct to pinpoint particular hypothesis. So we have freedom to play, and then vastness also there. And at the same time, if we approach with responsibility, and then we can play fairly. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
So yes. So now we have with us Professor Francesco Chiocci, who is the INQA President for Rome 2023 conference. We welcome you, sir.
Hello, sir.
So probably now I welcome him to address about the conference, and then what are the funding opportunities, and then also especially we need in this time of corona and then pandemic times. I think we students as well as scientists were keen to hear from you, sir. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm very honored of this invitation. I'm glad to tell you something about the organization of the Congress. So this Congress is rather a challenge because we don't know exactly what is going on in 1 year and a half. But we are preparing a Congress in person, because we believe that direct contact between people, and especially young scientists, to be in contact with more experienced researcher, it is a value that we all of us feel as a big loss due to this pandemic. So we really hope to have this Congress in person. So at present, we don't know what will be the restriction. What I can say is that during the summertime, usually the pandemic in the last years was much better. So we expect that there will not be restriction, but again, that is subject to unknown condition that we will experience in 1 year and a half. If everything will go on as we plan, the Congress, I hope, will be a great success, because it will be one of the first Congress after the pandemic. So many people probably will participate. At least we are hoping so. If we are doing some strategies to have a safe Congress, like to have strategies to avoid the queues for food, for registration. If the situation will be not very good, but not very bad, maybe we may think about to have distance between people attending the session, but still the session will be on person. The Congress is organized in a university campus. We are one of the oldest university in the world. We are 700-year-old, Sapienza University. We are a very big university. We have 100,000 students. That for Europe is a very large number. And that means that in July, we will have a lot of rooms, of lecture rooms available to run the Congress. And so the Congress will be organized within the main campus, and there will be also many field excursions, especially before the Congress. And in Italy, we have a wide range of Quaternary environment. We have very close to Rome, travertine, volcanics, but in Italy, we have the Alps with glaciers, a lot of coastal environment, lacustrine environment. So I would say that the complete range of Quaternary environments are present, and we are planning for a huge number of field trips to be run not only in Italy, but we will also have field trips in the Eastern Adriatic, so in Croatia, as well in Turkey, or some also in Algeria and in Greece. So that there will be also some Mediterranean field trip as well. To finish with the Congress, for the pandemic, what we are thinking, and the circular is ready, so will come out in the next days. The policy we will have is that if people register, and then the pandemic will force the people not, if the pandemic condition will not let the people will not let the possibility to come to Italy, we will completely refund what has been paid, even with the bank expenses, so that the people will not lose their money. And as for the strategy to help people from low-income countries to participate to the Congress, we will have for sure a program on that. We still are not able to come with the procedures. The procedures will be defined in the second circular that will be released in April, so in 3-4 months from now. But for sure, we will have jointly with INQA and President Van Korshoven will talk after me, also in general for the INQA initiative, but also in this. We will have a joint program of funding people to come to the Congress or helping them waiving registration fee. So we will see. That will especially be made for people from low-income countries and people that is presenting their work or a paper or at the Congress, at the Italian Congress. So there is a lot of people involved. We are working very hard. We hope to have a good Indian participation, and I think that. Even for India, maybe you will find something that can be also interesting, that is the correlation between archaeology and quaternary studies, how quaternary can take profit from some archaeological evidence and archaeology will need, for example, with a perspective in the period when the sea level was lower and so the early humans were developing on the continental shelf. So there can be also something that can be of interest. So I'm very glad to be here. If you have any question, I can answer you now, because in the meantime I am in a committee for the final degree, so I was planning to stay with you, but I cannot stay very long. So if you have any question, I can answer you now.
Yeah, if any questions to Professor Kyochi on the Roma Inqua, maybe 2 questions, if anybody has.
I can make 2 comments if you like, Professor Chikosi.
Hello, Ashok.
Hello, how are you?
Fine,
Yes.
thank you. Nice to meet you.
Nice to see you. I think assuming things may or may not work out, firstly, you might want to include a finite sum of money as a medical insurance as a part of the fees itself, because many people, they come. So in case of anybody falling sick, he is taken care of. That's one thing. So the fees includes some medical insurance component. So if I pay, then I know. That's one thing you may want to consider it. The second thing is, I will urge you to, even if you do a physical meeting, I think I request you to keep the hybrid mode open so that many people who cannot travel can still hear the lectures and participate online. So kindly think of a hybrid mode meeting, even if you do physical meeting, so that there will be many more who will be able to join you and get the benefit of the Congress. So if you plan the meeting in a hybrid mode, I think it will help many more.
Yes, the second question is that we don't know yet what will go on. We don't plan to have an hybrid because our experience with hybrid meeting is not positive, but we will see.
Okay.
I mean, in theory, we hope to have a physical meeting, maybe to have some possibility to download presentation 1 month after the Congress if someone was not possible to follow. But the hybrid meeting usually are not very successful. That is our experience. And for the medical insurance, yes, we will have a medical insurance for what is going on within the Congress. We cannot have a medical insurance for everything. So probably we will ask people to make an insurance for the flight in this period of complicated travel, but for the medical insurance within the Congress, for the activities in the Congress, we will have.
Yeah, only in Rome, and only for the 4 days people are there with you. For
exactly,
4 days.
Exactly.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Kyochi. Maybe now we can hear from Professor Van Kalstetten, President of INQUA, on what the funding opportunities for the students overall INQUA. Yeah, please.
Okay, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Because I'm normally at home at my computer, but at the moment I'm in Norway, so I'm try to contact you from the hotel room. So that's why I ask about INQUA, about funding facilities. First of all, I would like to inform you that next week, as Professor Giorgi said, next week the first circular will be sent out to all those who are on the mailing list of INQUA. And not only the first circular, INQUA also launched a monthly newsletter, and the first issue of that monthly newsletter will also appear early next week. So together with the first circular, you will receive the first newsletter, and in that newsletter, as I said, it's a monthly newsletter. We will inform the community about all kinds of developments, but especially also about the funding possibilities for different meetings, and of course also for the meeting in Rome, for the next meeting there. So it's important, if you want to be involved or you want to be updated, that you are on the list of the INQUA address list. At the moment, we have about 4,000, almost 5,000 people on that list, but maybe some of you have not been listed so far. It's difficult to say, but please ask your fellow scientists from India who will receive it to get that information, and send an email to the Secretariat of INQUA. INQUA has a secretariat since the 1st of January also this year, and she will edit the newsletter, but she also will send all the information. So it's important that you are on that list so that you get informed. Then, so be registered in that list. Then you will see in the first circular that there is a request for scientists, for colleagues, to send in proposals for sessions. So the whole program of the INQUA Congress in Rome is focused around sessions, and the session proposals have to come from the community. So you're all asked to send in session proposals. All the details are in the first circular or on the website, so please have a look. But it's important, if you would like to come to Rome, and especially if you would like to have also financial support to come to Rome, it's also important to play an active role in that commission, in that Congress. And one of the ways to play an active role is also to submit session proposals, to convene sessions, and in a later stage, and that's after the second circular, you're invited to send in abstracts. Abstracts for oral presentation, but also abstracts for posters. And then in that second circular are also the requirements and the possibilities to receive support, travel support, especially for young scientists to come to Rome. It's good to realize that, for instance, during the meeting in Dublin, INQUA supported about 400 young scientists or scientists from developing countries to come to attend the meeting. And as far as I understand, there were from India 61 scientists were supported to come to the Dublin meeting. And so the number of applications is higher than the 400 we approved, but it's important to realize that that's really a good source of getting money to be able to attend the meeting. And especially for those people who, of course, give a presentation, give an oral presentation or a poster presentation, those are the ones who are selected. So I really encourage you to play an active role. Think about sessions that will be of interest for a larger community. So not only of interest for the Indian community, but especially also for people abroad, so that it also attracts abstracts from scientists from other countries. And these kind of sessions will be selected. And if you play an active role on it, of course, this will be a good reason also to support you financially. And then in the second circular is also information about how to apply for the financial support. And so in this way, you really can make use of the possibilities INQUA is offering to support it. But there is another way of to think of. INCRA is since recently a foundation, and that means that it is, for instance, for companies or for associations, it's profitable to support, for instance, a project where young scientists are getting money to go to the INCRA Congress, because the money the companies are spending can be that can be reduced on the taxes. So as a foundation, it's profitable for companies to reduce to get tax reduction if they sponsor it. So think about also if you can, for instance, with a group of scientists from India, if you can encourage a company to start a program to support a number of scientists to go to Italy. And so these are other options, not only using INCRA money, but using also the fact that INCRA is a foundation to make it profitable for companies to support you. So that can probably also attract extra money for your community, for people to attend the Italian Congress. As Professor Geoarchaeological already said, it would be very good and really also for the community important if India will be represented in Rome with a big delegation. And we really would like to see that. So I really hope that you manage to do that, and we will do all our best to also to support you as good as possible in this aspect. Don't hesitate to contact me and please have a look at the newsletter and at the first circular also for further details. But in case you still have got any questions after this meeting, send an email and we'll see what we can do also. So this is, I think, the moment what I would like to inform you about.
Yeah, thanks, Professor Van Kalsatan. If we can just move on.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, now we will move on to next one. Professor Ashok Singhvi, he will talk about science management. He has requested me to not to talk much about it. So maybe we can, with small introduction, I want to say something like his work on the dating of sediment, like a sand grain, revolutionized this dating technique, and then that has helped us a lot to understand about the quaternary geotechnology, quaternary science as well. So maybe without much discussion or introduction, he doesn't need much introduction. Let him talk. Sir, please, this is your time.
Can you see my slide?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'll start by wishing all of you a very good 2022 for your safety and good health and good science. All the participants, my best wishes. I'd like to thank Dr. Vandana Prasad, Dr. Pradeep Srivastav, Vinita Partiyal for their hard work in keeping the Indian quaternary activities on a high pedestal. My compliments to all of you for the hard work being done by you. My special thanks to Professor Thais, who even in these very difficult times has led INCRA from the front and has ensured that things move faster than they did it in the past. So my compliments to Professor Thais. And more importantly, I'm happy that he has been with us on all important events of the Indian quaternary activities. So my thanks, personal thanks to him. And I also thank our Italian colleagues, Professor Francisco, for doing all the hard job for this coming Congress. And I wish him best luck. Now, a few days ago, I had a mail from about on the 15th or 14th of January, I had a mail from Dr. Vinita Partiyal to talk on science, philosophy, management, and policy. And she gave me 10 minutes. So it was almost like speaking for trying to write on a kernel of rice the entire story of Quaternary. I was a bit hesitant to do that. Then, of course, Dr. Srivastava and I talked, and then we agreed that it will be simpler for me to talk on how AOQR and INQUA can engage effectively for global good. And what I'm going to share with you are my thoughts about how the world is changing, the society is changing, and the expectations are changing. And what are the challenges we have in front of us for the future? I must start a priori and say that the contract of science with society has to be calibrated in a substantive manner. Now, I first looked at the word management, which Dr. Vinita wanted me to talk. Then I look at the word association, which is INQUA and AOQR. And then I will talk about what I think could be done and should be done. One of the important roles of science is the welfare of humanity. And what we are looking at is the freedom from want, freedom from fear, and freedom to live in dignity. These are the essential elements. And these require securities of various kinds: health, food, environment, personal, political, community. And all these security are critically dependent on three factors: resources, environment, and hazards. And all of them have to depend on quaternary geosciences for future. And this is an article very recently. And the ultimate objective of the society is that everybody goes up the Maslow triangle, that he first has the security need of food, energy, water. Then he has his own psychological needs are met, and only then he becomes creative. So if we want the world to be creative, we need to go up the Maslow triangles and ensure that everybody has the security of the kind he needs. And in respect of quaternary, we are looking at how do we manage the resources of the future? How will we find the resources, including water? What are the issues of environmental degradation? And how vulnerable we are to hazards? If we look at the management, in 1980s and late 80s, 1880s and early 90s, the first management of science, the scientific management theory was propounded by Frederick Taylor. And what I have done, he gave 5 tenets of management in a scientific manner of an organization, of a factory, of an institution, or whatever you call it. I have tried to convert it into management of science. So first of the tenets he mentioned was that science should be the basis of all management and work. That means everything you do in that institution should be scientifically oriented. Equivalent for management of science will be that it is non-partisan and the decision making, the policy making is evidence-based. The second tenet he gave was harmony, not discord. That means the management and the people are in harmony. And here we have to have harmony with our stakeholders, the society which is funding our research. So there has to be a certain kind of harmony between us and our funding agencies so that we are able to take science forward. Then it's a mental revolution. That is, you excite everybody about your science, about your institution. So the outreach comes an important part. So we need to be informing the society of the developments we do, realizing their needs, meeting their needs with mutual respect. The society has to respect you as much as we have to respect society because they fund us. Then the next he says is cooperation is more important than individual. We cannot work as a single entity. So I have translated into collaboration and not competition. We need to collaborate. We need to create synergies, both internal within an institution, within a group, and external, so that we collaborate and get a wider range of perspective. Something that was also mentioned by Murtika, the pluralism that he talked about. And develop every entity to the greatest efficiency, and that is capacity building. So that is the management part of it. Now, What do the associations do? Associations like INQUA or any other association essentially create a republic of scientific enterprise to provide equal opportunity and create a world without physical boundaries. We talk the same language in Quaternary, we have the same process, and we look at the events and processes and the observations without any consideration of the boundaries. Till recently, the role of association was that facilitate communication, promote science, disseminate science, encourage professional interest to be safeguarded, advise policies if possible, and interface with the society. This was the standard paradigm. All the association worked well and they have been working well. Now the context has changed and that has happened because science and technology has entered our lives in a very intimate manner. There was time till recently, till the late 50s, late 60s, late 70s, that we looked at science as a free play of free intellect, and to quote one of our Bush, and we did not have any accountability. People gave money, they got the money from society without expectation of what we deliver. Fortunately, we were able to deliver lots of good, but there were no questions asked when you deliver, how you deliver. Now there's a question of accountability, that do we give back to society the money they get back? So there's a changing context of interaction between science and society, and there's a trust and expectations. 20 years ago, I don't think we ever worried about a cyclone being forecasted properly. Today, we track it every second and expect it to be predicted to the kilometer accuracy. And there are many examples I can give you. So there is a kind of a trust deficit. And there are questions now being raised of who should manage science even. Should the science be managed by scientists? But can they manage it because they are themselves a party to it? Or science should be managed by somebody else like politicians? And you have seen examples in USA and elsewhere in the world where increasingly the scientists have to take a back seat, even on issues where the science has to have a front seat. I can give many examples of that, but you might have seen it yourself. The second thing that has happened, which is worrisome, is that the geography of knowledge has been static over the last 100 years, not changed, and I'll come to it in a minute. The decision making has become increasingly regional. The parochial interests are now overriding the global interests. And look at the way the climate change negotiations have gone, you would have realized that a small parochial interest can mar a global good. And that we need to be worried about. There's increasing regional imbalance of resources, and there are wars going on for resources all over the world, directly or indirectly. I can give a lecture on that. There is an increasing parochialism and in the use of science. We have become parochial of which part of the science we want to use, which part of science we don't want to use, what is convenient to me for today. So there's a short-term vision of the political process that overtakes the long-term good based on science, and that we need to be worried about. We know that the global impact, global change will be manifested very differently in various local dimensions, and that means that we need to have people all over across the world who can then manage and translate the global science to local science in a meaningful manner. So there is a changing social contract. The society now demands return on its investment in science. And the main paradigm is to produce the best possible science. And I've added to it evidence-based non-partisan science. And then the expectation is that we should produce something useful in real time. Earlier, it was only produce something useful. Now it is produce something useful every day in real time. And that's where we need to be worried about. So the association will have to recalibrate their role, and I'll come to it in a second, to be able to cope up with the changing global economic social scenario. For example, environmental change is a global phenomenon, but hazards are region specific and has lots of sociological dimensions. So if you really want to take care of Africa, we may look at a warming scenario of 1.5 degrees or 2 degrees, but we need to translate that to the processes on the land, on the landscape, on the soil of a region in Africa, not the total region. And that's where we need to be worried about it. Now, if you look at the world scenario, if you look at the population growth, you are going at a very fast rate, and we're adding about every 30, 40 years, we're adding 1 billion people. If we look at the hazards are also increasing, and this is the global hazard until 2019. And if you superimpose the two curves, you realize that a lot of damage on the people and the property will happen in an increasing manner, an exponentially increasing manner. You superimpose first and the second curve. Then if you look at the number of deaths in hazards, you'll find that most of the deaths have occurred in the southern hemispheres because of natural hazards. And that means these are the areas which are not well prepared to be able to cope up with hazards. If you look at the Human Development Index, again you find that the global south are the areas where there's a significant deficiency compared to the global north, which is well developed. The famous Brandt line, which essentially plots the GDP per person, again puts south into the same category. If you look at the COVID-19 vaccination, and this is the data of 18 January, up to valid up to 18 January, again you will find that the global south is lagging behind the vaccine. And if I change the word from vaccination to quaternary expertise, I think the same figure will hold true, that we do not have sufficient people trained in quaternary, in climate change science in the global south that will translate the science that is generated mostly on the global north to be of use. And that's a thing we need to be worried about. So my submission is then the association must transform themselves to proactively generate socially relevant and affirmative programs for science and capacity building. We need to create ecosystems for new paradigms and directions in sync with the social needs. I think there's no escape from that. One of the important things that we can do is that we need to move away from a data dump mode to real usable product, maps, scenarios, and white papers, synthesis. What happens is when I report a data where I say an isotope curve or a data age sequence and a sedimentology, essentially I'm trying to do a data dump. And I think most of us do that. But that data dump has to be synthesized into real usable product of map, scenarios, and white papers. For example, we had floods in South India where the airport was scenario. And then we realized that the airport was built on a floodplain. Now, how could that happen with so many quaternary geologists in the country? Is a question that we need to ask. Where was our projection of a one in 100 year, 1 in 1,000 years? We have done lots of stratigraphic work, but we have never taken the next step to convert that step, the stratigraphic work, the age data, the sedimentology, the geochemistry, the isotopes, to create usable products. So I think that's one thing we need to be doing, is to create usable products. The second important change we need to do is that we have to emphasize the move away from correlations to causality. And we often see people correlate with various global events without causality. And even in this Congress, we saw many papers that we see medieval warming or whatever scenario we see, that is not correct. Causality and is an area that we need to develop, where we talk in terms of processes, fluxes, time scales, thresholds, and implications. There should also be a factor of the amplitudes of the proxies. I'll come to it in a minute in the next slide, I suppose. Then we need to come from a transition from an observation, a statement of observation. Let's say it's a warm, wet, dry, at what time, that's not important. There's no science now. but from a plausible explanation to a probability of it. What is the probability of a 1 in a 100-year flood, or 1 in a 100-year heat cycle, or a dry phase? And I think the examples of the two talks we had by Bob Wasson and Clift were very clear examples that how could they take the next step of creating and estimating fluxes so that you can then make scenarios and models of what will happen under a given situation. That's the next step we'll have to take. We have to be, the associations have to transit from being a facilitator of science to motivator of doing new science and create new working groups, the focus groups in emerging disciplines. And I will talk about in a minute. We need to transit from an aggregator of talent pool. We encourage everybody to come together, but we need to be proactive in creating regional capacity. And my submission to all of you is that think of your being a mentor to a colleague in Africa or elsewhere, wherever he needs it, and commit 5% of your time and 5% of your resources to that activity. If the world does it, I think in no time, we will have a region transformed to global good. We cannot be happy if our colleagues, our neighbors are not happy. I think we need to be very careful about that. The next and the last point in this slide is that open access to literature and make sure that we create mechanism for IPR being protected of these regions. I think these associations have to take a proactive role in transforming science and scientists for more productive, useful products and ensuring there's a capacity building with IPR protection. So essentially, we need to create a culture of shared responsibility, shared resources for a shared future. The focus area, therefore, we need to, again, I mentioned, we need to transition from data science that is there. We are all data intensive, but we are not intensive in processes, flux, and products. That data dump mode, including this Congress, has to go away to talk in terms of processes, fluxes, and products so that you add value addition to what you observe. And this quaternary science is now becoming, or in fact, any geoscience becoming an issue of global commons. Everybody wants to benefit from quaternary geology, but not many are willing to support. And industry surely is not supporting us. And I think we have to, and to me, it implies that we have not been able to give our message very clearly to people so that they see a merit in our being able to support. Now, one of the major role association like INQUA or AOQR could play is that make sure that we make quaternary a career option for experts in mathematics, biology, modeling, sociology, data analytics, artificial intelligence, instrumentation, and policy. I think these are inputs we need besides geology. Now we do not understand the role of biology in soil process, for example, at all. So I think these are disciplines where experts, if they come from this, and if they see quaternary as a career option, so we need to enlarge the scope of quaternary sciences to be able to look at the wholesome future that we have, because we have to deliver, and the world depends on quaternary studies. And that will mean that we also work towards the framework where teaching and hiring is also dependent on whether that 30%, 40% of people are from these areas. So people can come in, add to what we can do. I've talked about processes and causality. What's the meaning of our data? Why should my sediment be linked to medieval warming or whatever? Then most of the geoscientific data is a point measurement, a stratigraphic column. And we tend to upscale it instantly with a global frame. What are this? I think we need to have a standard operating procedure. Now, how do you upscale a point measurement, a stratigraphic column, to a regional basin scale measurement? So I think we need to transform from a local measurement to a basin scale, at least a basin or a area scale measurement, and see what are the scaling laws that apply. Proxies are used very well, but at the same time, very little work has been done on thresholds, time scales, amplitude, saturation of proxies in response, And can we develop new quantitative proxies? Again, there could be a lecture on this, but I like you to think about how do we assume that my proxies are responding to change in a linear manner. And if the change continues, will my response be linear in my proxy or otherwise? We don't know. We need to have a focus on critical zone, on soils, of course, medical geology and landscape. I think these should be integrated into one program where critical zone, which is essentially the half a kilometer or a kilometer of the subsoil, to soils, medical, this should be integrated because it involves health. And then if it involves health, many will be able to support it. Pollens to paleoecology, and I think that's something we can always do. There's a lot of pollen data, but very little paleoecology. All the millennium paleoecological reconstruction is based on 50-year data. This pollen data, through certain amount of modeling, which has been done in UK, we can use it and create changes in ecosystem through the time, and that can be used to predict the future. I think we need to worry about future climate-induced migrations of people, and then ecosystem stresses associated with them. It is clear that in the next 10 or 20 years, a large-scale climate-induced migration will happen with the sea level change coming up, extreme climate, extreme weather, extreme fluvial events. People will move, and with them, the ecology will have to move and cope up with. I think this kind of modeling we have not been doing, and we should be thinking about, including with us, people from social sciences. We need to create many observatories on tipping points of key ecological systems. And very successful studies have been done by John Deering, which was reported at the Birbal Sahni Institute a couple of years. I think we need to be creating tipping point observatories for this, for key ecological variables. Hazards, again, we have landslide, tsunami, earthquakes, all kinds of hazards should be looked and monitored in real time. And now the new technologies, new instrumentations allow us to observe them in the real time. I think a major program, because most of the loss occurs because of hazards, and this is something we are very poor at yet. And I think a focused program on developing a global effort to understand these processes, scale them up, and do the predictions of, can we do some kind of prediction, even at a 10-minute interval or 20 minutes. I think it's worth it. And we are trying to develop one for the Himalayan observing system that we are trying to create, and hopefully it will be taken forward. Similarly, we'll have sea level, we'll have tsunamis coming again. We'll also have floods coming, but there's a sea level change going to go. Now we need to be able to model the impact of sea level change on the future tsunami inundations, the way the flood inundations will occur at various places. I think we need to be looking at those, building scenarios, preparing the country, preparing the world of the disasters that come. The style of flood inundation can be used to devise an optimum evacuation strategies. I think these are the things we need to be looking at, and these are coming directly from what we do. It's not, we need to take a step forward, do some mathematics, do some statistics, and we can do much more. And then finally, these products which we provide, association would have the license to provide a non-partisan science output. Others maybe not, but association, Inqua like association, will have that kind of license that they can evaluate, let's say science says so. So ensure against biased interpretations and ensure against being ignored of this. So we should be able to put those white papers on ground so that nobody will dare to ignore that. I think that's where I would put my money on. Finally, this is my last slide. I would request you to, all my colleagues, younger colleagues especially, to look at what is the relevant statement you would like to tell your mother or your father of what is the relevance of science. How does it impact it? Why should the country fund it? I think that's an important question we need to ask. What is the impact of our science? Is it incremental data dump, observing something, recording something, and then that's the end of it? Or are you going to make a conceptual advance? And if you're not able to make conceptual advance, there's no need to do that science, because I think we need to ask questions very carefully. We need to be able to produce maps and scenarios based on whatever we observe. And finally, we need to have synergies, trust, which means ethics. And we need to work in large groups with mission mode, and critical mass is needed. I don't think we can survive working alone. So you must have seen the slides of Professor Peter Cliff. There are 20 authors. Must have seen the slides of Bob Watson. There are 10 authors. I think we need to come together with trust and synergy. I think otherwise we'll be left out and ignored. I thank Professor R.S., Professor Watson, Professor Shivaram, the World Wide Web from where I took the slides, and ESTSCR for supporting me. And I'm grateful to all these colleagues because I've learned a lot. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, probably few questions maybe asked from the students or there are like Professor Ravindra, Professor Chamyalji, DM Banerjee, Dr. Anupama, or anybody else who has any questions. Maybe 3-4 questions to be asked. Yeah, if there is.
It was so bad, nobody has questions, so don't worry.
Maybe they will contact you.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
There's one from Anupama.
Yes.
Hi, Anupama. How are you?
Hello, sir.
Yes.
I was really very happy to listen to your talk, and especially because you have talked about going from Poland to paleoecology. So I'm working with the BSIP team right now, several of the palynologists, and that is in fact what we are trying to do. So that's one of the things. But overall, I think your talk is like, I mean, it's really the thing which all the young people have to listen to, and I'm so glad that you put it so well over here. So this is what I wanted to say.
Thank you so much. So kind of you.
Yeah.
Any other question? If not, maybe we thank you, sir, once again. Maybe we
Thank
can,
you so much. Thank you so much.
Next is vote of thanks. Please, Dr. Vinita Bhatia.
Thank you, Martike. And before before the vote of thanks, I think Professor DM Banerjee is here. Sir, would you like to say something? It would be really nice if you could address us. Sir, please. Sir, please unmute yourself.
Thank you for giving me a chance to speak a little bit. I really wish you all a very good luck so that you can organize more and more conferences, meetings like this, and ultimately get down to a physical meeting where we can meet each other. And I'm also looking forward to the international meet to Rome, which was announced. I think maybe as many of you will be able to join. Now, I take this opportunity to invite all the quaternary researchers to the International Geological Congress, a virtual International Geological Congress, which we are holding it for 3 days in the month of March. Because I will ask all quaternary researchers all over the world to get registered. There is no registration fee. You just have to fill up a form to become a participant. It is a small program for 3 days, a attenuated IGC you can call, few lectures and few group discussions, so that you will be able to, there are a number of quaternary scientists, we have invited them, and they will be talking in that meeting, including Professor Watson, who gave you the inaugural talk. So we will have enough time. That's why that is my message, and good luck for every one of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, Professor Banerjee. We see Professor Chamyal also here. So, sir, if you could, say some few words to encourage us.
No, exactly, Dr. Vinita. I only would like to, appreciate the efforts of the president, the secretary, and all other governing body members of AOQR. I really appreciate. I really enjoyed listening to many young quaternary budding scientists, I would call, and there you could really manage well. You could. I agree with Professor Banerjee that had it been a physical one, would have enjoyed more, and there would have been more interactions with the young ones. And but then anyway, under the circumstances, this effort I really appreciate. And the only thing that I noticed, I must tell you, that sufficient time was not given to the young quaternary researchers or presenters, those who were presenting. So interaction was not much, but then it was possible, at least I could, or all of us, gather what kind of work is going on in different institutes by individuals and by the teams. And I'm also aware of the focus area that Singhvi mentioned, but he did not mention about the constraints. I would have liked that he also mentions about the constraints that we have, and which he is very well aware of, and all of us are aware of. So perhaps AOQR will be one, means such an association can only address those constraints, issues that we have. Forming teams is very easy, but then sustaining the teams and funding, etc., and identifying, long-term programs or conceptual these issues, we all are aware of it, but then somehow it is not taking the shape. I agree with Professor Singhi when he has focused some areas for future research for the young ones, but the constraints are going to be the same, which I faced or you might be facing, or else others might have faced. But someday we also need to discuss about the constraints that we have within our own fraternity of forming teams and working as as a team member, or mostly the funding is also a difficult thing. It has become difficult these days to generate actually. But otherwise, if I recall that, quaternary science, I know when I joined Tamil University of Baroda in 1980, Professor S.S. Mayer, Professor Rajaguru, these were the two stalwarts who actually initiated these quaternary studies along with D.P. Agrawal from PRL. And then it has really taken, since 1980 to say now almost 40 years now. We see a lot of change in the issues also, in the quaternary issues. Now, for example, we talk about stratigraphy, quaternary stratigraphy, but chronology, Professor Singhvi also mentioned about the problem of chronology, but then but the problem has remained the same in the last 40 years. This is what I feel that whenever I look at a section in any place, whether it is Gujarat or elsewhere, I see that who is going to give a number to me on these sections. That is a big constraint of a field geologist, field quaternary geologist. If something can be done for meeting such constraint, for actually dating our sequences. If you look at a section of somebody from elsewhere, you will find some 40 numbers on that section, but we will have only hardly 1 or 2, so we are unable to actually, unable to cope up, unable to actually, meet the expectations at global level, basically. So there are constraints, but I'm so happy that this AOQR is there now to take care of such things, raise voices, and we are all there to actually listen to the young ones and know more and more about the new things that the young generation will, generate, means the new data particularly, and will address some global issues. So good luck to the association and all young ones. I really enjoyed the last 3 days. Could not be there all the time, but then I did join as and when I found some time, and I enjoyed. So congratulations to all of you again. Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to say a few words, maybe a bit harsh ones from my side, but then
Thank you so much, sir.
but then I would like to be very clear on certain issues. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, sir. I know there is a lot of things to work on, these constraints that we have jointly with new technologies, also with new groups and new teams, and think of projects, major projects, mega projects, that is. So I say we are with you all are there, patrons are there for AOQR to help us, to suggest, and I know we'll go a long way. Dr. Rasik Ravindra, sir, you are here and you worked in the harshest, surroundings in the Antarctica Quaternary. So it will be really nice if you could also say a few words.
Thank you, Vinita, and thank you, Dr. Vandana, and all others for arranging such a beautiful workshop. Very, very knowledgeable, and it was really a pleasure to listen to the keynote speakers, Watson and Peter Clift and others. I don't have much to add here after what Dr. Singhvi and Dr. Chamyal, Dr. Banerjee have said. I'll practically echo all the words that they have said. But a few comments from my side. Actually, I was looking forward for some dating data, especially from the glacial snouts or the glaciers in the Western Himalayas, basically for the Little Ice Age. So in most of these sessions, I stayed back to listen to those data and get some dates, but I failed. Very little was said about, there was hardly a few papers on the glaciers and recession during the last Quaternary phase or the Holocene, in fact. And my particular interest was to get some dates, during the last centenary, say from 1800 to 1900, or say 1300 to 1900, when the Little Ice Age was supposed to be there. Because we have very little data on that. And in that background, what Dr. Chamyal and Dr. Singhvi have projected, that's very true, that when we talk of the quaternary geomorphology and especially the recession of the glaciers or sequencing the sections, we hardly have particular data. There are some sections where a lot of data is available, especially Owen and others have done some good work, but contemporary data, is missing. So I think now that you have got this association and a platform, and there are good contacts with the SERB, DST, maybe some good things will come forward. So with all the good wishes for all of you, my compliments. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. That is really nice. Dr. Anupama Krishnamurthy, ma'am, you're here. Singhvi sir, please can you unshare the presentation? Yeah. Anupama, ma'am.
Yeah. I was really very happy to attend this 3-day session. And as I told you, Benita, when I was just speaking to you last week about this, it's so good that you went ahead and organized this in this virtual mode, because I think it is always good to start and not to put it off just because we can't meet in person. And I think given all the constraints, this is a very good meeting. it gave a platform to see a very wide view of various work which is getting done. And I really encourage this to go on, and I'll do my best to keep supporting in whatever little way I can. And I'm really very happy that this meeting happened. So
Thank you, Anupama ma'am. Yeah, really nice. You've always, been an active part of this association. And I would also like to invite our young students who are here, if you have something to say, because we have mentors here.
Can
Yes,
I say sentence? I only like to mention that what Dr. Chamial said was correct, that the ages have been few and far between, but I may want to add that with the new facility IUC, we have produced about more than 2,500 radiocarbon dates in the last 3-4 years, or maybe more now. And I'm just compiling the Indian work on luminescence, and it's about 1,000 OSL dates are available on Indian sequences. Of course, and there are 10 labs work, and of those 5 are working very actively to produce. So something is happening. Rome was not built in a day, but I think if you focus and optimize on the sampling strategy, collect a few samples which have a larger scientific impact, I think we will do better. And I think things are changing. IUAC Center is doing well. Cosmogenics also, they are doing in hundreds now. So things are changing, and fortunately we were able to establish this center, and it's been working very well so far. And all other analysis is also possible there. So I think things are looking better. It could be even much better, but I think we have to be careful. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. So none of the students, I think they are tired after the 3 days presentation. Yeah, time was a constraint here because, it was not a day-long conference. We had to it was like planned for 3 hours per day, because if sitting in front of the screen the whole day is also, we cannot expect, everybody to do that. So that is why we could not, give time, but we wanted to listen to all the participants who had submitted the abstract for the conference. So not taking much time, I would like to propose a vote of thanks, and I'm glad to be here for the concluding remarks and to express my vote of thanks. It's been such an honor to be a part of the organizing team of this academic event that was conducted, and it was conducted well. This 3-day congress from the 19th to the 21st January 2020 has brought forth the contributions from 280 researchers working in the Indian subcontinent in different aspects of quaternary sciences. With a focal theme of integrative quaternary sciences for societal services, the sessions were divided into climate, past, present, future, Earth surface processes in quaternary, oceans in quaternary, humans in quaternary, fossil records from quaternary, and quaternary landscape evolution. And these were seen to the papers that were submitted, and we listened to some 42 oral presentations and saw some 48 poster presentations, and along with 3 interesting keynote talks. The presentations have brought very quantified data in the varied fields of quaternary sciences. We also saw some new proxies that are being developed and that are being tested, and new areas that are being ventured. And a real-time data generation is coming through. And I think this would really help us. We are going forward. So these were discussed, although we didn't have much time for discussions, but we could see the discussions in the chat box, and we could see that, papers from all over India, be it the Himalaya, the Thar, the Peninsular India, the Coastal India, they were there. So that was really nice. And we have representatives from INQA here, and they are a witness to that INQA 2019 in Dublin saw the largest Indian contingent ever participating in a quaternary union. So there it was it was very decisive decision that was made to have Indian counterpart part of this global platform. And with the collective efforts and guidance from the seniors, especially Singh sir, we organized this, and we made this association. And there are several plans, and today Sir has given us the list of how to go about those plans. So IQC 2022 was also a result of that decision taken last year by our governing body members and the working group leaders and group secretaries. And so it's designed as a biennial meeting, and it starts this year, and 2024 we again meet. This time, of course, it was in a virtual mode, but I'm very sure that in 2024, by 2024, the pandemic would leave our globe and help us to meet in person. For a Congress to be a success, there is a team behind it. So there are several people who have directly and indirectly, helped us during these days. I would name some here, but I know I cannot do the whole list. But our mentors, Professor Chamial, Professor Vishwas Kale, Professor Hima Chutte, Professor Singhvi, Professor Ed Singh, Professor R.K. Singh, Professor Rafik Ravan, Professor D. Banerjee, Professor V. Kotia, Professor Shanti Pappu, Dr. Anupama Krishnamurthy, Professor Ashok Arumuri. I extend my thanks to all of you. A special thanks to our keynote speakers, Professor Robert Wasson, Professor Peter Clift, Professor Rajiv Patnaik for accepting our invitation and being there for us. And their talks were really very good and really inspired us. Special thanks to Professor Francisco, President INQUA, and Professor Van Kopschoften, President INQUA, for being with us, and our best wishes for a successful INQUA Roma next year. I thank our President, Dr. Vandana Prasad, for always supporting us. As the Director of BSIP, she is again thanks for providing all the facilities of the Institute, and thanks to the Computer Committee and a bunch of active students, Sirish and Arvind, who were always here to help us during these days. Sincere thanks to the moderators of different sessions who handled the sessions throughout, and on time sessions were conducted. I would be failing in my duty if I do not thank the group leaders, group secretaries, and my fellow colleagues. I'll name some: Dr. Rajiv Saraswat, Sambuddha Mishra, Parth Chauhan, Prabhan Sukumaran, Vimal Singh, Praveen Mishra, Santosh Shah, D.M. Maurya, then Anup Ambali, Rakesh Chandra, Naveen Dadi, Manoj MC, Murthy. So all my colleagues are thanked for this. I would also like to bring here the National Advisory Committee, IQC 2020. I would thank them, the AOQR governing body members, office bearers, and AOQR members who've been a part of us and who've supported us in all the ways. So the participants, last but not the least, the participants are the superstar of the Congress, and they've put in a lot of effort in making this Congress flow with good research work, good research ideas, and a wide, we could say a round of applause for all of them, a thumbs up to all of them who have made this event a memorable one. I thank my co-convener, Dr. Pradeep Srivastava, for standing by me during the conduction of right from the beginning. We will meet again in 2024 during the 22nd Indian Quaternary Congress. There will be two announcements shortly. First, about the publication of the papers that were read in the conference. They would come up as special volumes in different quaternary journals. Secondly, there would be an invitation for the interest of bid and bid proposals to host the IQC 2024 from different academic institutes and universities. Now, on behalf of the President AOQR and the Chairman IQC 2022, Dr. Vandana Prasad, I announce the conference to be closed. We will be meeting soon. Finally, all of you who are here till this last minute of the conference, I thank you one and all. We shall be meeting continuously. Till then, stay healthier, stay happier. Namaskar. Bye. Yeah, we can clap, all of us. We can unmute and clap for the conference. Thank you. Thank you all.
Then we can have a screenshot.
Yeah, screenshot. Please, camera switch on your camera so we can have few screenshots with the faces. Banerjee sir, yeah. Yeah, that's nice. Pankaj, Anupam, if you could just switch on your cameras, we can take photographs. Feroz Khan, Asma ma'am, Banerjee sir. Yeah. And very nice. Thank you. So we yeah, stop recording, please, and yeah, we can close.
Very nice.
You can